Have you ever wondered why so many men walk into marriage with hope in their hearts, only to walk out years later with empty wallets, broken spirits, and a court order that follows them for life? Let me tell you about a man I once knew. He worked hard, provided for his family, and never missed a day of responsibility. To the outside world, he was the perfect husband. But when his wife filed for divorce after 15 years, he lost his home, half his savings, and even the custody of his children. Overnight, the man who thought marriage was his greatest achievement discovered it was his biggest liability. Now here's the real shock. His story isn't unique. It's the story of millions of men around the world. The system, the laws, the expectations, they all seem designed to keep men giving while taking everything when they're at their weakest. That's why in this video, we're gonna dig into the truth about why marriage exploits 99% of men. Stay with me, because by the end, you'll understand not only how this system works, but why it was designed this way in the first place. Let's face it, if you ask the average man today about marriage, you'll often hear hesitation, fear, or even outright refusal. Why? Because modern marriage is no longer the fairy tale promise it was once marketed to be. For men, it's become less about love and companionship and more about legal contracts, obligations, and risks. Think about it. If a man marries, he's told he must be the provider, the protector, and the rock of stability. But if the marriage collapses, the same system that praised his sacrifice is ready to punish him. Doesn't that sound like a trap, cleverly disguised as tradition? To make a long story short, what was once considered an honor has now become a gamble, where men put everything on the table, but often leave the game with nothing. Section 2. A brief history of marriage, from partnership to obligation. Let's rewind a little. In ancient times, marriage wasn't about romance. It was about survival, alliances, and the continuation of family lineage. Men and women both contributed, often equally in agrarian societies. Men tilled the land, women managed the household, and both roles were essential. But as societies industrialized, something shifted. Men went to work outside, women often stayed home, and slowly the burden of being the provider became cemented as a male responsibility. The modern narrative painted marriage as a man's duty to support, protect, and sustain. Not just a partnership, but a lifelong contract where he pays more, risks more, and sacrifices more. Fast forward to today, and the obligations remain, even though women have gained independence and financial freedom, but the expectations on men haven't been reduced. Instead, they've doubled. Isn't it strange how progress for one gender often comes at the expense of the other? Section 3. The traditional role of men: protector, provider, sacrificer. Here's the truth. Men are conditioned from childhood to prepare for marriage as if it's their ultimate responsibility. Be a man, they're told. Take care of your family. Be the breadwinner. Sounds noble, right? But what happens when that role is no longer respected, but still demanded? Imagine working 60 hours a week, paying for the mortgage, the bills, the vacations, and still being told you're not doing enough. That's the silent exploitation. The sacrifice isn't only financial, it's emotional too. Studies show that married men report higher stress levels when financial pressure increases, because they feel failure at work equals failure at home. Source: American Psychological Association, 2022. So, here's a rhetorical question. If men are sacrificing their health, wealth, and time, what exactly are they receiving in return? Section 4. How modern laws tilt against men in marriage. Now, let's dig into the legal side, because this is where marriage transforms from a personal choice into a systemic trap. In most Western countries, family courts operate under the principle of protecting the vulnerable party. But here's the catch. 99% of the time, the man is not seen as vulnerable, regardless of reality. Consider divorce proceedings. Statistics show that nearly 70% of divorces are initiated by women in the U.S.
American Sociological Association, 2015. Once the papers are filed, the man faces automatic battles over alimony, child support, and property division. Even if he was faithful, supportive, and committed, none of that matters in court. The law doesn't reward good husbands, it enforces obligations. Assets are split, custody often leans toward the mother, and the man is left paying monthly checks for years. Is this equality or exploitation disguised as justice? Section 5. The divorce industry. A billion-dollar machine. Here's something most people don't talk about. Divorce isn't just a personal tragedy, it's a business. Lawyers, mediators, therapists, and courts profit every time a marriage breaks apart. In the United States alone, the divorce industry is estimated to generate over $50 billion annually. Think about that. The system actually benefits when marriages fail. So when a man signs that marriage certificate, he's unknowingly entering a system where billions of dollars are waiting to be made off his pain, his property, and his paycheck. Let me ask you, if a system profits from your failure, do you think it really has your best interest at heart? Section 6. Alimony and child support. Financial shackles for men. Here comes the brutal truth. After divorce, many men don't just lose half of what they own. They also commit to years, sometimes decades of payments. Alimony, or spousal support, was originally designed to help a financially dependent spouse get back on their feet. But today, it often becomes a lifetime obligation. In states like California, long-term marriages can result in indefinite alimony payments. Imagine working hard every day, not for your future, but for an ex who may even despise you. This is where men feel the deepest wound, not just financial loss, but the emotional pain of being sidelined from fatherhood while still being the one who pays for it. Section 7. Who benefits from the marriage system? So let's step back and ask the big question. Who actually gains from marriage in today's world? The state benefits through taxes, fees, and legal structures. Divorce lawyers benefit, turning human heartbreak into a steady income. Courts benefit. Every new case is another stream of revenue. And even society benefits, because men's sacrifices keep families afloat, even when it destroys the man himself. Doesn't it sound like marriage has shifted from being a union of love into a social contract designed to extract value from men?
Section 8. The emotional labor trap. Expectations placed on men. Now, let's talk about something rarely mentioned but deeply felt: emotional labor. In relationships and marriage, men are expected not only to provide financially, but also to be the steady emotional anchor. He must listen, comfort, solve problems, and suppress his own struggles. Society conditions men to man up, never to complain or cry. When his wife is stressed, he must reassure her. When the kids are upset, he must stay calm. When bills pile up, he must remain strong. But here's the twist. Who supports the man? Studies show that men are far less likely to seek emotional help, and even when they do, they're often ridiculed or dismissed. Source: Mental Health Foundation, UK, 2022. So, isn't it ironic? The husband is expected to carry everyone's emotional baggage, but when he finally breaks, the system offers him no cushion at all. This silent exploitation drains men in ways statistics can't always capture. Section 9. The myth of the happy wife, happy life mentality. You've heard it 1,000 times. Happy wife, happy life. It sounds harmless, even playful, but in reality, it's a phrase that reflects a deeply one-sided expectation in marriage. Think about what it implies. The husband's happiness is irrelevant. Only the woman's happiness matters. The burden of keeping peace,
Balance and satisfaction falls squarely on his shoulders. But here's a question. What about the husband's well-being? Why is it never happy husband, strong marriage? This mentality suddenly trains men to ignore their own needs, desires, and boundaries. Over time, this imbalance doesn't just breed resentment, it destroys marriages from the inside. So to make a long story short, this so-called wisdom is less a recipe for love and more a blueprint for male self-erasure. Section 10. Why men's mental health suffers in marriage. Let's get serious. Men's mental health has reached crisis levels in many parts of the world. Research shows that married men often feel trapped between their responsibilities and their lack of emotional support. In the U.S., men account for nearly 80% of suicides each year, CDC 2022. Divorce increases a man's risk of depression by almost 250% compared to married women, Harvard Health 2021. Financial stress and custody battles are leading causes of male breakdowns during and after divorce. These numbers aren't small, they're staggering, and they tell us something powerful. The very system that claims to support family stability often destroys the men who hold it together. So let me ask you, how can society ignore the suffering of the very gender that sacrifices the most for marriage? Section 11. The rising statistics of divorce initiated by women. Here's where it gets even more interesting. If marriage were truly beneficial for men and women equally, we'd expect divorces to be initiated fairly evenly. But reality tells a different story. In the U.S., nearly 70% of divorces are initiated by women. American Sociological Association, 2015. Among college-educated women, the number jumps to nearly 90%. Why is this the case? One explanation is that women today are more financially independent, giving them the freedom to leave marriages without fear of survival. Another is that social narratives encourage women to prioritize personal happiness over long-term sacrifice. But here's the irony. The system rewards them for leaving. They can initiate divorce, claim custody, secure child support, and sometimes receive lifetime alimony, all while the man shoulders the financial fallout. So when people say men are afraid of commitment, maybe the truth is simpler. Men are afraid of a system where the odds are stacked 7-3 against them. Section 12. Marriage versus long-term partnership. What's the difference? Now, let's pause for a moment and compare two similar but very different arrangements. Marriage versus long-term partnership. In a committed partnership without marriage, two adults can live together, share finances, raise children, and build a life without legally binding themselves to the state. If things don't work out, they can separate without the courts dictating every detail. But with marriage, the state enters your bedroom, your wallet, and your children's lives. Your private relationship becomes a public contract, enforceable by law. Suddenly, ending a personal bond requires lawyers, judges, and thousands of dollars in fees. Here's a rhetorical question. If you can build love, loyalty, and family without signing a government contract, why sign it at all? Section 14. Case studies. Stories of men who lost everything in divorce. Let's look at real lives because statistics only go so far. John, a 45-year-old engineer, was divorced after 20 years of marriage. Despite his wife being the one to leave, he lost the house, pays $2,000 a month in alimony, and only sees his kids every other weekend. He jokes that he now rents an apartment smaller than his former garage. But behind the joke, there's pain.
Michael, a small business owner, built his company from scratch. After his divorce, half of the business was awarded to his ex, even though she never contributed financially or operationally. Within 2 years, the company collapsed under divided ownership. David, a military veteran, lost custody of his children despite being the primary caregiver while his wife pursued her career. Today, he pays child support for kids he only sees during the holidays. These aren't isolated cases. They're reflections of a pattern men know all too well. Section 14. Comparing rent versus mortgage. The financial analogy of marriage. Let's use a simple analogy. Renting versus buying. Marriage is like signing a mortgage contract with the state. You're locked in, with obligations stretching for decades. If you want to leave, you can't just walk away. You owe penalties, fees, and endless paperwork. So partnership without marriage, that's like renting. You can still build a beautiful home, decorate it, live happily, and even raise children. But if things fall apart, you can leave without losing half your life savings. So let me ask, if renting gives you freedom and flexibility, while buying locks you in to risk after risk, why are men still told that signing the marriage mortgage is the only respectable path?
Section 15. The hidden costs of marriage no one talks about. When we think of marriage costs, most people imagine the wedding day, the venue, the dress, the food, the rings, but the real costs of marriage begin long after the honeymoon ends. There are hidden financial drains built into the system that men often overlook. Alimony. In many regions, men can be required to pay spousal support for years or even a lifetime, regardless of whether the wife chooses to remarry. Child support. While supporting children is necessary, many fathers pay high amounts yet receive limited visitation rights. Imagine paying thousands each month but being treated like a visitor in your own child's life. Lawyer fees. Divorce courts can drag on for months or years. Men often pay tens of thousands of dollars simply to protect what they have already earned. And here's the harsh truth. Once the court system is involved, the costs only go one way, up. Every argument, every motion, every delay equals more bills. So the real hidden cost isn't just money. It's the slow bleed of energy, peace of mind, and freedom. Section 16. Fatherhood and custody. Why men often lose. Let's shift to one of the most painful aspects of divorce. Fatherhood. Many men marry because they dream of building a family. But what happens when that family breaks apart? Custody battles begin. And here's the reality. Courts overwhelmingly favor mothers in custody disputes. Even when fathers are loving, stable, and financially capable, they are often given the every other weekend arrangements. Some fathers must fight for years just to see their children regularly. Now imagine the emotional impact. A man pays child support, loves his children deeply, yet the system treats him like a part-time visitor. Ask yourself, if a father is financially responsible for his children, shouldn't he also have equal rights to raise them? Section 17. Cultural differences. How marriage works around the world. It's important to note that marriage isn't the same everywhere. Different cultures approach it differently, and men experience varying levels of protection or exploitation. Western countries, US, UK, Canada, divorce laws tend to favor women heavily, with high rates of alimony and child custody going to mothers. Scandinavian nations, marriage and partnership laws are more balanced. In some cases, cohabiting partners receive the same rights without needing marriage, making it less risky. Asian and Middle Eastern cultures, traditional family structures often still protect men financially, but the tide is shifting. Modern legal reforms are slowly mirroring Western models, and men may face the same challenges soon. So here's the point. Marriage is not just about two people. It's about which system you're entering, and in most cases, men are stepping into systems where the rules don't favor them. Section 18. The evolution of marriage, then versus now. Marriage wasn't always like this. Historically, it was about survival, alliances, and family continuation. Both men and women had defined roles, the man as the provider, the woman as the caregiver. Divorce was rare, and communities supported the bond. But today, marriage has shifted dramatically. Women have financial independence, career opportunities, and social support outside of marriage. Men, however, are still expected to play by the old rules: provide, protect, sacrifice. So here's the question. If women have adapted to a new era of independence, why are men still pressured into a system built on outdated expectations? Section 19. Breaking the cycle, what men can do instead. Now that we've broken down the risks, the hidden costs, and the cultural traps, what can men actually do? Educate yourself. Don't walk blindly into marriage. Understand the laws in your country. Know what you're signing before you sign it. Build financial independence. Protect your assets. Consider prenuptial agreements, trusts, or simply delaying marriage until you are fully secure. Prioritize emotional compatibility. Instead of rushing into marriage, focus on long-term compatibility. Many men mistake attraction for partnership. Consider alternatives. Long-term partnership, cohabitation, or simply dating without legal contracts can provide intimacy and family life without state interference. Breaking the cycle doesn't mean rejecting love or family. It means rejecting a broken system that punishes men for trying to build them.
Section 20. The psychology of risk. Why men hesitate today. Let's get real. Men today are more hesitant about marriage than ever before. And it's not because they don't love women or because they fear commitment. It's because they understand the risks. Psychology tells us that when people see danger, they avoid it. Men are simply acting rationally. If you saw dozens of men losing their homes, savings, and even their children after marriage, would you want to line up and do the same? This isn't fear, it's wisdom. Men are analyzing the data, seeing the patterns, and choosing to protect their futures. Section 21. The illusion of security marriage promises women. Marriage is often sold to women as a guarantee of safety, stability, and lifelong support. But here's the truth. That security comes at the direct expense of men. If a woman decides to walk away, she walks away supported by the system. If a man decides to walk away, he risks losing everything. So in reality, marriage doesn't create shared security. It creates one-sided security, tilted in favor of women. And this imbalance is the reason why more and more men are questioning, is it worth it? Section 22. The media's role, how men are shamed into compliance. Now, let's talk about media influence. Movies, shows, and even advertisements constantly promote marriage as the ultimate life achievement. Men are shown as failures if they stay single. Husbands are portrayed as bumbling fools who can't live without their wives. Women are glorified as the prize men must win. This messaging is everywhere, and it shames men into compliance. Instead of asking whether marriage is fair, men are told they're immature or afraid of commitment if they don't sign up. But let's flip that narrative. Maybe it's not immaturity. Maybe it's intelligence. Section 23. Alternatives to traditional marriage, new paths forward. If marriage is risky, what are the alternatives? Fortunately, there are healthier paths men can choose. Cohabitation without marriage. Live together, share love, raise children, but avoid the legal traps. Prenuptial agreements. If marriage is necessary, protect yourself with clear financial agreements before signing. Spiritual or cultural ceremonies. Celebrate love and family without involving the state. Choosing single fatherhood or adoption. For men who dream of fatherhood, modern options exist without the risks of marriage. These alternatives prove one thing: you can build love, loyalty, and family without sacrificing your freedom. Section 24. The future of marriage, where society is heading. Now, let's look ahead. The statistics don't lie. Marriage rates are declining worldwide. Men are stepping back, women are waiting longer, and younger generations see marriage as optional, not mandatory. If laws don't change, the institution of marriage will continue to collapse. It's simple cause and effect. If one group, men, faces all the risk and none of the protection, they will eventually walk away. The future belongs to relationships built on choice, not contracts. Love without law, partnership without punishment. Section 25. Final words. A call to men everywhere. Men, here's the truth you need to hear. You are not broken for questioning marriage. You are not weak for protecting yourself. You are not less of a man for refusing to walk into a trap. Marriage, in its current form, is not designed for your benefit. It drains your resources, limits your freedom, and places your future in the hands of a system stacked against you. But you have a choice. You can break the cycle. You can choose alternatives that protect your well-being while still allowing you to love, grow, and build a family. So the next time someone pressures you to just get married, ask yourself one simple question. Whose future does this contract protect? Mine or hers? Gentlemen, if this video opened your eyes, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend, a brother, or anyone who needs to hear the truth. Because knowledge is power. And men, it's time to take that power back. Comment below, do you think marriage is worth it in today's world? Why or why not? Hit that like button if you believe men deserve fairness in love and law. Subscribe for more deep dives into the realities men face in relationships today. Because knowledge is power. And men, it's time to take that power back.